Grand Theft Auto versus Driver. Well, I don't think anyone's having this debate anymore. GTA thoroughly smashed Driver in the home console market, but on the handheld battlefield, things were quite different. You wouldn't believe what was being carried out in the name of Driver on the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and DS. But why bring this up? Well, friends, this is Punching Weight, a celebration of the weird, ambitious, and unnecessary. In this episode, we are pitting 8 games against each other in the battle for handheld sandbox supremacy because, well, someone had to. This is Punching Weight Episode 8, Grand Theft Auto vs. Driver Handheld Edition. Round 1. Let's start with Driver, which here in North America was subtitled You Are the Wheelman. For a hot minute, Driver was the open-world sandbox game to beat. This Game Boy Color version is a very faithful port of the PlayStation 1 original, which in and of itself is pretty impressive. It may not look like much, the graphics are pretty bland, and the music is nothing to get too excited about, but the controls are great, which is, I don't know, kind of important in a game that's literally all driving. Yes, in the first Driver, you could not get out of your car. Cars look a little small, but it's a good use of screen space, giving you time to react to sharp corners. Tapping the B button allows for some nice burnouts and slick maneuvering around cops and civilian cars. It's not perfect though. Coming to a dead stop is a major frustration because getting back up to speed takes so damn long. Go! Again, it's a faithful port of Driver, meaning it's more about not driving reckless, which seems counter to the appeal of sandbox games in the first place. This makes some missions super challenging, but there's a nice amount of variation, including some great mini-games. I had a lot of fun with the survival mode. Overall, the gameplay feels focused and simple, which, when it comes to sandbox mayhem on the go, keeping things simple was a smart move when compared to GTA. Full disclosure, I've never really been a fan of the classic bird's-eye view style GTA games, but I still think only die-hard fans will get much enjoyment out of the Game Boy Color port, coming to us from Tarantula Studios. It's one hell of a package though. The graphics are much better here, with more detail in the vehicles, buildings, and roads when compared to Driver. But it comes at a cost. The streets are completely empty most of the time, meaning very few pedestrians to mow down or cars to blow up. Your walk is incredibly slow. Getting a car is essential when you can find one. Man, I wish I had a car. Yes, wait, I want to get in. Let me in. I want to get... No! Man, I wish I had a car. When you finally get a car, cruising around the city is a chore and a half because every car is 0 to 100 in 0.8 seconds. There's a helpful arrow that always points you where you need to go, but there's no map. And without one, I was never exactly sure where the hell I was going or if I was unknowingly heading straight for the Hudson. Thanks, arrow. The arrow in Driver wasn't much better, but at least a map of the city was just a start button away. Between all the playable characters, there are apparently over 100 missions that probably allow for a little more variation because you can go out on foot and use guns, never mind how painfully slow it may be. Another bonus is that GTA is a black cart Game Boy Color game, so it's the only game in this video that can be played on all Game Boys. Plus, it has battery backup saves, which is regrettably missing from Driver. I mean, what the hell? Passwords for the campaign, but no saving your high scores for survival mode? Still, GTA might have more content, but Driver gets the prize by prioritizing gameplay. GTA fans would probably have a better time with the sequel, and that brings us to Round 2. GTA 2, also from Tarantula Studios, fares much better on the Game Boy Color. Still vibrant and detailed, but with improved controls, more populated environments, and cars that are much easier to drive. They no longer move at lightning speed, but it takes a million years to shift into reverse. Once again, you are given arrows, but not a map, so the auto in Grand Theft Auto is still a pain. But again, the game's not skimping on the content. It's got a bunch of playable characters, a giant city, dozens of missions, tons of bang for your buck. Plus, busier streets means more chances for mayhem, and that's really what we're here for, right? But remember, this is Punching Weight, and we celebrate ambition.
Just take a look at this.
That's right. Driver 2 Advance is a full 3D, third-person sandbox game on the go. Released when the GBA was barely a year and a half old and ahead of Super Monkey Ball Jr. and Crazy Taxi Catch-A-Ride, it's a mystery how Sonari Interactive were able to pull this off. Lots of traffic, pedestrians, clutter, a mini-map, rear-view camera, 2 giant cities, minigames, and multiplayer modes, all with the added ability to get out of your car. If you can shake the heat, go ahead and dump your wheels, steal a new set, and reset both your felony and damage meters. Yeah, that's all it takes to clear your name. However, there's no combat to speak of, either hand-to-hand or firearm, but at least you can drive a little more reckless now if you want. I'm not that familiar with the PlayStation version of Driver 2, but apparently the GBA port replicates that campaign them quite faithfully. Chicago and Rio de Janeiro are pretty interchangeable in terms of visuals, and are both flat cities with straight roads and standard 90-degree intersections, but they are impressively massive with tight streets, wide open parks, and hidden alleyways. Things move at a slow pace, but remember how bad Crazy Taxi looked? Turns out bad graphics are easier to stomach at slower speeds. Plus, this strips away the frustration of the dreaded tailing missions, the bane of every sandbox game. Well, I guess most of the frustration. Look at this. The AI got stuck and I had to nudge it back on track. They made the survival mode way too difficult though, that's a bummer. Though the other minigames are still a lot of fun. GTA 2 is an improvement over the first, which is good news for fans, but Driver 2 Advance went the distance by going full 3D. Minigames, multiplayer, a map. Again, the point goes to Driver. But okay, maybe it's not fair to compare a Game Boy Color game to a Game Boy Advance game. How about we level the playing field in round 3? Well, despite being 3 years into the GBA and experimenting with their Smuggler's Run and Midnight Club franchises, Rockstar stuck to its top-down classic-style guns, though to be fair, delivering the best GTA yet on a handheld. GTA Advance opted for 2D-style gameplay but has some great 3D graphics. Check out those buildings. And the camera does a pretty good job of pulling back to show the path ahead of you. Still no map! Why were they so scared of maps? The arrow has been replaced with a mini-map in the corner, but when driving across a damn city, a professional criminal needs to know exactly where they're going. On-foot movement and combat is really good. Strafing with guns is easy and feels great. You can leap over cars, so maneuvering around traffic isn't a problem. Cars can flip over where they magically catch fire and explode like in modern GTA games. And you know what? That's the thing. In many ways, GTA Advance is a stopgap between GTA 2 and GTA 3. It's the classic style but informed by the modern games, and it's not bad. Now, during this time, Grand Theft Auto is proving to be the success story of the console generation. 2004's Driv 3 was the series' big attempt to win back the crown, but came up short.
This sucks! I mean, how can Refractors mess up so bad? Tanner, you suck ass!
The world had started to forget about Driver, but that didn't deter French power duo Velez and Dubale. Released 1 year after its home console counterpart, and hot off the heels of their jaw-dropping Asterix and Obelix XXL came the GBA port of Driver 3, which has got to be one of the most technically impressive games ever made. An enormous improvement over the already impressive Driver 2 Advance, Driver 3 speaks for itself. Look at that running animation, how fast you cruise in cars, the color and variety of buildings and sidewalks, how populated the streets are, how the roads curve and slope, how I hit that light pole and instantly failed that mission, damn it! You see that texture pop in? For this mission, I have to follow that cop car for 1.5 minutes, and if it ever gets outside of the stunted draw distance, bam, instant mission failure. Follow the target missions are always the worst part of sandbox games, but this is the second mission in the game, and no, you green bastard! Get out of my way, damn it! This incredible game is severely marred by missions like this, but the point is to show you just how sprawling and detailed the city is. Once you complete it, and you have my prayers, the game opens up to you. Story and side missions appear on the map. There's also a bunch of hidden package collectibles to find. Plenty to do. You don't have to worry about car damage, as it seems all cars are indestructible in the world of Driver 3. It's fine by me, honestly. But the cops don't seem all that interested in you, even if you steal their car. You can't shoot pedestrians either, but you can jump over them. You can't really cause mayhem in Driver 3, probably another technical compromise, but may not be what people are looking for in a sandbox game like this. Guns are for missions only. Shooting is a little clunky. With your weapon drawn, you can only strafe, but not turn. So it's kind of a Z-targeting situation of wrestling with the camera, but it gets the job done. Your biggest enemy is the physics. Cars handle on the squirrely side, which is a problem when one collision means the difference between finishing or failing a mission. Driver 3 has some shortcomings in the gameplay department when compared to GTA Advance, but it's such a technical marvel. I don't know, it's really close, but I gotta give the point again to Driver. And honestly, the top-down perspective still just doesn't work for me. I don't know what kind of black magic Velez and Dubale performed to will this game into existence, but it's stunning, and they weren't finished. And this brings us to round 4, the final round. Here is where Grand Theft Auto finally stepped up its game. Chinatown Wars is one of the most critically celebrated handheld games ever released, and with good cause. Of the games discussed here, this is probably the one you played. It's been released on DS, PSP, iOS, and Android. But here's the thing, while it's probably the best classic-style Grand Theft Auto game ever, it's still more or less that classic style. And while Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories did eventually bring modern GTA-style gameplay to the handheld market, the world never saw a completely original, portable Grand Theft Auto in this style. Velez and Dubale to the rescue again, though only technically. The rumor goes that C.O.P. the Recruit was planned to be released in tandem with Driver parallel lines, but we reached out to Dubale himself and he set us straight. The publisher Ubisoft asked for a new IP for their DS game. But this was the duo's follow-up to Driver 3, so we still like to think of it as an honorary Driver game. And this is still when it was only 2 of them. Just look at these credits compared to Chinatown Wars. Once again, successfully doing what others couldn't or weren't foolish enough to try, C.O.P. the Recruit is another full 3D sandbox game, and thanks to the power of the DS, looks and runs fantastic. Combat uses the stylus to replicate a keyboard and mouse the same way Dementium and Metroid Prime Hunters did. The second screen acts not only as your map, but also your GPS system in your C3 database, which is a really clever mechanic. There's even a beautifully ludicrous story about how you're a former criminal forced to be a cop to pay your debt to society. Yes, C.O.P. stands for Criminal Overturn Program. How stupid and wonderful is that? This game really shouldn't be that impressive. It's mostly just shocking that through the years, GTA never attempted to replicate the third-person perspective that made it a mega hit franchise on the console market. If anyone had the money to take the risk, you'd think it'd be Rockstar. Why did they insist on playing it safe? C.O.P. the Recruit is not a better game than Chinatown Wars, but it's just insane that this is the only game of its kind on the system and was made by basically 2 people. Is that weird? Yes. Unnecessary? Well, probably. Ambitious? Damn right it is. C.O.P. the Recruit and the rest of the Driver games all get the punching weight seal of approval. We'd like to give a special thanks to Guillaume Dubale for graciously answering our questions. Look forward to a special Valez and Dubale tribute episode of Punching Weight coming very soon. And listen, this whole mess came about because our awesome viewers requested Asterix and Obelix XXL in our very first episode, so keep them suggestions coming. Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show, and it would not be possible without these fine people here. If you'd like to support the show and see your name here, click the logo and give what you can. We recently played most of these games on our livestream channel. Check out the video in the middle there. Also, if you want to see the previous episode of Punching Weight, I Can't Believe It's GBA 3D, check out the video on the left. And Metal Gear is in the news again. If you need a refresher on that whole mess, check out the video on the right. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.